This haunting doorbell footage shows Travis Decker just days before he did the unthinkable. His daughters, 9-year-old Peyton, 8-year-old Evelyn, and 5-year-old Olivia, thought they were going on a fun camping trip with their dad, but they never came home. 4 days later, their tiny bodies were found near Rock Island Campground, zip-tied with plastic bags over their heads. As investigators started piecing things together, a disturbing pattern emerged. Ignored red flags, unenforced court orders, and a father quietly unraveling behind the scenes. But what truly shocked everyone, this wasn't some snap decision. Authorities now believe Travis planned it, every last step. This is the heartbreaking case of the 3 sisters who were brutally murdered after a camping trip with their homeless dad. It was supposed to be a normal Friday. Travis Decker arrived at his ex-wife Whitney's home in Wenatchee, Washington, right around 5 p.m. It was his scheduled visitation time with their daughters, just a short 3-hour visit. The girls were excited. Spending time with their dad was something they genuinely looked forward to. But Whitney noticed something wasn't quite right. She would later tell investigators that Travis seemed off, quiet, distracted, and when she asked where he was taking the girls, he wouldn't say. Now, at that moment, Whitney didn't panic, because why would she? This was their dad, and this visit was supposed to be short. Nothing about this situation yet screamed danger. But something deep in her gut was unsettled. By 8 p.m., that quiet discomfort was growing. Travis hadn't checked in, he wasn't answering texts, calls went straight to voicemail. Whitney tried to stay calm, maybe they lost track of time, but 30 minutes passed, then an hour, and still no sign of Travis or the girls. By 9:45, Whitney's fears had reached a breaking point. She called the police. When the officers arrived, they noted that she looked distraught. Her eyes were red and she had clearly been crying. Travis had a good relationship with the girls. He'd never keep them past the agreed time. If there were any changes in the plan, he always let her know.
He's never done anything like this before. He's always very responsive if there's any deviation to the parenting plan that's necessary. So this was really unexpected.
But she also told them something else. She told them Travis had been struggling, that he was currently homeless and living out of his truck. She described him as emotionally unstable. And here's the thing about that. Police started the search right away. Using traffic camera footage, investigators spotted Travis's white GMC pickup leaving Wenatchee around 5:40 p.m. That detail might seem small until you learn it was a direct violation of the court-approved parenting plan. Travis was not allowed to take the girls out of the area. Officers canvassed local motels, places where Travis was known to stay on occasion, but there was nothing. No check-ins, no sightings, no answers. At this point, Wenatchee police requested an Amber Alert, but the Washington State Patrol declined.
If we were to issue an Amber Alert, every time someone with custodial privilege is late getting that child back, we'd have Amber Alerts just about every day.
But Whitney knew better, and truthfully, so did the officers. Travis Decker had partial custody of the girls, and the Washington State Patrol said something that, frankly, felt deeply unsettling in this context. When a custodial parent is late returning children, law enforcement doesn't immediately assume that they're in danger. But this wasn't that. Travis was homeless. He was under pressure. By Saturday morning, another red flag appeared. There was a local 5K event that Travis and the girls were expected to attend. They didn't show up. No calls, no explanation. And at that point, the situation finally shifted. By late Saturday afternoon, after Wenatchee detectives shared additional case details, the Washington State Patrol authorized what was known as an EMPA, an Endangered Missing Persons Advisory. According to WSP, the EMPA allowed them to broadcast the vehicle details on highway signs, and it reached the public in much of the same way that an Amber Alert would have. It was better than nothing, but many would argue far too late. As the investigation picked up speed, the FBI started digging into Travis's phone data from Thursday and Friday, hoping to narrow down the exact locations he might have traveled to, or was still hiding out in. On Monday, Whitney spoke to the media saying she didn't think Travis was a danger to his daughters.
Where do you think he might be headed?
He was last pinged going out of Leavenworth, the 76 station. So I'm thinking up in the mountains. He prefers a secluded area. with maybe some running water and a nice campfire. I just love them so much, and I hope they're safe. I hope that their dad is safe, and then I just hope that he realizes that he can bring them home and that we can figure out anything else after this.
By that afternoon, police had used all that information to zero in on a specific area near the Rock Island campground. They had also finally secured an arrest warrant they had been working on. Then, at around 3:45 p.m., the search teams arrived in that area. And what they found? No one was ready for. Travis Decker's white GMC pickup truck was spotted, abandoned off a quiet rural road not far from the campground. There were 2 bloody handprints smeared across the tailgate. Inside the vehicle, kids' car seats, blankets, food, a wallet just sitting there on the console untouched. The area around the truck was searched carefully, and not long after, the worst possible outcome was confirmed. Just nearby, the bodies of Peyton, Evelyn, and Olivia were found. Each of the girls had plastic bags placed over their heads, and their wrists were bound with zip ties. The cause of death? Asphyxiation.
A heartbreaking end to the search for 3 little girls, 9-year-old Peyton, 8-year-old Evelyn, and 5-year-old Olivia Decker, found dead near the Rock Island campground near Leavenworth. Now, a manhunt for the sisters' father, 32-year-old Travis Decker.
I don't know, I have a little girl myself, so that's, it's shocking.
Visitors hoping to hike a nearby trail were turned away at a roadblock as a large-scale search is carried out.
I'm sorry for the family and for the mother. That's devastating. I absolutely cannot imagine.
The death sent shockwaves through the Wenatchee community. People were heartbroken, confused, asking the one question that no one ever wants to have to ask. How could a father do something so horrific to his own children? And it's a question that doesn't have a simple answer. But in order to even begin to understand what might have led to this tragedy, we need to go back before the search, before the alerts, and back to where this story really began. Whitney and Travis Decker had been married for 7 years, but by March of 2023, the marriage was over. Whitney was the one who filed for divorce, and in court filings, she described a relationship that had become increasingly volatile. Sometimes he'd just leave without warning. It wasn't sustainable and it wasn't safe. After the divorce, custody was split. Whitney had primary custody and Travis was scheduled to see the girls every other weekend. But not long after that agreement, things started to shift again. By late 2024, Travis was experiencing homelessness, and Whitney filed to have their parenting plan modified. Travis, a military veteran, had a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, and according to Whitney, his mental health was in serious decline. In the documents she wrote, Travis has emotional and mental health issues that were the primary catalyst to the end of our marriage and have also affected the girls greatly. She went on to say that his symptoms had intensified after leaving active duty in the Army. She described his behavior as increasingly narcissistic, unpredictable, and erratic. Starting in October 2022, Travis was living at a National Guard armory. Then he briefly secured an apartment. But when that lease ended, he went back to the armory before purchasing an RV. In May of 2024, he moved the RV to Idaho, trying, it seems, to restart something. But by the end of that summer, the RV was repossessed, and Travis was once again unhoused. Whitney later shared that while Travis was staying at the armory, the girls had slept there with him on mattresses, surrounded by dozens of men. She hadn't agreed to that. She didn't even know about it at first. There were incidents where he would show up at her home yelling for the girls, and sometimes he simply wouldn't show up at all, breaking promises to pick up the girls. In the filing, Whitney cited 3 specific incidents. The first one was August 30th, 2023. It was Travis's weekend to have the girls, but he told Whitney he didn't want to take them. Then there is this incident on December 19th, 2023. Whitney wrote that her youngest daughter, Olivia, FaceTimed her, screaming and sobbing. Travis was nowhere to be found. It was during this moment that she realized they had been staying in the armory again. And then, July 25th, 2024, Travis showed up at Whitney's house hours late. He had hitchhiked there. At one point, Travis told Whitney he planned to hitchhike to pick up the girls from a play. Whitney was stunned and understandably terrified. And she wasn't the only one raising red flags. The girls' maternal grandmother also wrote a statement. She said, "They're happy, smart, well-adjusted girls. except after visiting with Travis. But throughout all of this, Whitney never tried to cut Travis out of their lives. In fact, in that same filing she wrote, he's made huge sacrifices for our country and loves his girls. Still, deep down, Whitney knew her daughters weren't truly safe. In court, Travis tried to argue that nothing needed to change. He claimed that since he was no longer on active duty military status, he had more time to spend with his daughters, and even went so far as to say that they could learn something from the struggles he was going through. But Whitney's legal team wasn't buying it. They urged the court to step in, requesting that Travis undergo a full psychiatric evaluation and that Whitney be granted the authority to restrict visitations when necessary for the girls' safety. And the court listened. They ruled in Whitney's favor, finding credible concerns around neglect and emotional instability. As a result, Travis was court-ordered to complete anger management and undergo a psychiatric evaluation with a licensed professional. The judge also signed off on a new parenting plan that strictly limited his visitation to designated hours on weekends, no overnight stays allowed. But the real gut punch? When the girls disappeared, Whitney told police that Travis had never signed the updated parenting plan, and he had never followed through with the court-mandated mental health treatment. Still, she never imagined that he could be capable of harming his own children. And what makes this story spiral from tragedy to absolutely chilling is what investigators discovered next. Authorities learned that Travis had visited the Rock Island campground, the exact same spot where the girls' bodies were later found, the day before he picked them up. That strongly suggests this wasn't some impulsive act. He may have planned this. He may have hidden supplies, mapped his route, and prepared for a calculated escape. So as the full, unbearable weight of what happened to those 3 little girls started to settle in, the search for Travis Decker went into overdrive. This wasn't just a local manhunt anymore, this was national, and it was all hands on deck. Chelan County officials confirmed that agencies at every level, local, state, and federal, had come together to track him down. We're talking the FBI, Homeland Security, U.S. Border Patrol, and the U.S. Marshals. That tells you just how urgent and serious this is.
We've been conducting a search since early this morning up until later on this afternoon. That unfortunately has not allowed us to locate the suspect yet, but we are not done searching. As we speak, the Marshal's Office, the FBI, they're processing leads, they're conducting follow-up, and we will not rest until Travis is located.
Police wasted no time in releasing a description of Travis to the public. They urged anyone who might have seen him to come forward immediately. He's described as about 5'8", 190 pounds, with black hair, brown eyes, and a mustache. He was last seen wearing a light-colored shirt and dark shorts, and make no mistake, he is considered armed and dangerous. If you see him, do not approach. Call 911 right away.
Travis, if you're listening, this is your opportunity to turn yourself in. Do the right thing, do what you need to do, and take accountability for your actions. We're not going to go away, we're not going to rest, and we're going to make sure we find you. You will be brought to justice.
While still on the run, Travis is now facing 6 felony charges, 3 counts of first-degree kidnapping, and 3 counts of first-degree murder. And there's now a $20,000 reward on the table for information that leads to his arrest. But what makes all of this even more chilling is that Travis is trained for this kind of thing.
They believe that he has a special set of skills because of his background in the military that makes him even more dangerous than a normal person. They also believe that he could have a gun. So they're warning the community because the biggest thing right now is finding this suspect.
Travis enlisted in the Army back in 2013 and served in Afghanistan. By 2021, he'd transferred into the Washington National Guard. For a while, he was full-time, but by 2023-2024, he had shifted to part-time status. Notably, he stopped attending mandatory drills about a year ago, and the Guard was in the middle of processing a disciplinary discharge. But here's the part that has law enforcement on edge. Travis wasn't just your average soldier, meaning he'd received some of the most elite military survival training out there. And according to his own father, Travis had experienced living completely off the grid for months at the time. He knows how to disappear. Police have released doorbell cam footage showing what they believe to be Travis's last known appearance before the murders. The footage was recorded before the bodies were discovered, but so far, it's the most recent confirmed visual of Travis Decker. And because no one knows where he is or what he might be capable of, authorities are urging residents across multiple counties to stay alert. Meanwhile, as this manhunt intensifies, the community is still reeling from the unimaginable. On Tuesday, June 3rd, tributes poured in from across Wenatchee as people tried to process the loss of Peyton, Olivia, and Evelyn Decker. The girls were part of the short Shakespearean program at Music Theater of Wenatchee, and the theater shared a heartfelt message on Facebook. Grief counselors have been made available to students and staff as the district navigates the aftermath of the tragedy. In the midst of the devastation, support for the girls' mother, Whitney Decker, has been overwhelming. By June 6th, an online fundraiser had brought in over $1 million to help cover expenses and take time to grieve without financial pressure.
Members of the small yet tight-knit community of Wenatchee are sharing their grief and uniting in song.
We want to share their lights and see one another.
They're keeping these lights shining at Memorial Park in honor of 9-year-old Peyton, 8-year-old Evelyn, and 5-year-old Olivia Decker.
No amount of questions or their answers will properly soothe the pain that we bear.
But they also asked for one thing: privacy. Because what Whitney is going through is more than tragic. It's every parent's worst fear come to life.
Whitney is living every parent's worst nightmare. The hole in her heart is immeasurable. There are no words that can capture the weight of this loss. Right now, she's surrounded by friends, family, and neighbors doing everything they can to hold her up.
And that's all anyone can do. Just be there, hold space, and honor the memory of those 3 little girls whose lives ended far too soon. But now I want to hear from y'all. Do you think that the system failed these little girls? Travis was homeless, clearly spiraling, and still got unsupervised visits. No Amber Alert when they were reported missing? Let me know what you think in the comments, because this case is beyond disturbing. And if you thought this one was hard to watch, the next one will leave you speechless. Like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss it.